Good afternoon, hello everybody on YouTube and as well on WebEx in UK, in Zambia. Today we have one match between two teams who qualified for the quarterfinals. My name is Ryan Orange. With my colleague Anna Maria Urbanova, we will be hosting this match on behalf of the Coax Foundation for the Hague Inter-University Law Debate Tournament 2024, 7th edition. We have the University of Lusaka in Zambia and we have the University of Manchester, United Kingdom. We'll be competing today on a topic which is within the theme of those quarterfinals match. The quarterfinals match this time are focusing on the concept of disinformation and law. So all the match will have this theme, and this match has a unique topic to debate on. The students, they had actually this topic, they received it 7 days ago, they prepared it. Now we'll hear, of course, what they will say during the match, but having in mind, of course, that it is an important match as well, as the team who wins the match will go to the semi-finals and will be in the final four of the 7th edition. So now it's time to give the floor to the students and alternatively between the two universities. I will start with Asiatu Tondolvenkosi Mdala. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Asiatu Ndala and I'm from the University of Lusaka in my second year of studying law. I'm very, very excited to debate with the other university and I can't wait to hear your submissions.
Thank you very much. Welcome. We have as well Miss Fatimatu Zara Diallo in Manchester. Welcome.
Hi everyone, my name is Miss Diallo. I'm from Manchester and I'm in my third year of study and I'm really looking forward to the debate today.
Thank you and welcome. We have as well Mr. Hilary Tinomiti. Welcome.
Good afternoon, my name is Hilary Tinomiti. And I'm very excited to be here, very excited to get going with this debate.
Thank you very much. We have as well Mr. Abdullah Tassi in Manchester. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name is Abdullah Tassi. I'm a first-year law student at the University of Manchester. Congratulations to the University of Lusaka for making it this far, and hopefully we have a great debate today.
Thank you. Welcome. We have as well Mr. Austin Buendo Kachenga. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Austin Wendo Kachenga. I'm a third year, second semester student from the University of Lusaka. I'm happy to have made it this far and congratulations to the University of Manchester for making it to the quarterfinals.
Thank you very much. And we have in Manchester Mr. Adalberto Dionisi. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Adalberto Dionisi. I'm a third year law student and I'm looking forward to debate with you.
Thank you very much. I mentioned as well that there are 3 judges who will be watching this match, so we send our greetings to the 3 judges who don't know each other. It will be the first time they assess, the only time actually they assess those teams. One of them actually is the author actually of this debate topic. So the debate topic itself was regional intergovernmental organizations, such as the European Union, should be vested with powers to legislate on behalf of their member states in cybersecurity matters to prevent the risk of online hacking threats and disinformation and misinformation. So as you can see now, we do the allocation of positions, which team will be in favor, which team will be against the motion. We'll know now. The team will be in favor, we'll start the match. This is University of Lusaka will be in favor of the motion. As a consequence, University of Manchester will be against the motion. Concretely, it means that University of Lusaka will start the match defending the position that regional intergovernmental organizations should be vested with powers to legislate on behalf of their member state in cybersecurity matters to prevent the risk of online hacking, threat, and disinformation, misinformation, while the University of Manchester will defend the position that regional intergovernmental organizations should not be vested with powers to legislate on behalf of their member states in cybersecurity matters to prevent the risk of online hacking, threats, and disinformation, misinformation. Now you have 5 minutes to review your notes, and then we'll start with the introduction of the University of Lusaka. Voilà. So we'll be able to start the match. So I will ask indeed the team of the University of Lusaka to get ready. This is the team which is in favor. Voilà. So in case there are some, let's say, issues for the technical connection, I mean, yes, it would be nice in general at the time when you see that the sound is not very good, for those who do not speak except to the timekeeper, my colleague, to close the camera. So, but for the moment it works. We will see how it goes. Okay, so we will start the match. So it means that I will give the floor to the University of Lusaka for your introduction. You have 4 minutes.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. I'll be beginning in. Good afternoon. I was the first speaker of the committed delegation. I will be contesting the aforementioned motion. Now, allow me to get into what we deem to be the key terms and the parameters of this debate. Firstly, when we look at regional intergovernmental organizations, what we're referring to is a collection, or rather an organization of member states that tend to be geographically linked towards one another in proximity. For example, the EU, the African Union, for example. Now, when we look at legislate, what we really refer to is that the power to enact laws. Simple as that. And when we refer to cybersecurity, what we're referring to is the protection of internet-connected systems and resources from cyber attacks and those kind of harms that can arise from cybercrime. Now, allow me to give a case study of what our three main arguments are going to be. First, we're going to look at the transnational nature of cybercrime and why the impetus is on these RIOs to actually legislate on behalf of their member states. Secondly, we want to look at the reason why harmonization standards is actually quite crucial. And then thirdly, we want to look at the importance of pooling resources. Now, getting into our first point, what we find is that cyberspace, or the cyberspace, is actually akin to the high seas and maritime law in the sense that it is so vast and is so difficult to legislate, but it is central to the modern global economy. This is why we cannot leave the impetus to be on domestic or countries to legislate on this issue domestically. The reason being that if it's such a transnational issue, then the question arises of the question of jurisdiction, but also how can a nation legislate on international matters? Now, it's a key consideration for this House to consider. Now, when you look at jurisdictional issues, for example, if there's a dispute between the nation of England and the nation of France, the question is not going to be whether it's going to be the common law legal system or the civil law legal system whose principles apply, because that would be redundant, but rather international legal principles. And this is the reason why we strongly stand behind RIOs having the ability to legislate on behalf of their member states. Now, moving on to the harmonization of standards. This is necessary because it's necessary for us to have common frameworks that are needed for people to avoid loopholes. We can give the example of in the 2000s, a very famous cybersecurity crime was actually happened when in the Philippines, there was a man who created a virus that actually affected millions of computers across the globe that actually had to shut down. And it caused the loss of over $6 billion in revenue on that day alone. And what we found is that that criminal actually avoided liability because in the Philippines, it was not a crime. So this indicates the need for harmonization standards and legislation, because if we relate this to the principle of double criminality, it shows us that for criminals to be extradited, what needs to happen is that it has to be a crime in both their member state as well as the crime of origin. So without this harmonization standards, what we find is that so many criminals slip through the cracks. And finally, we have a very strong case law that supports this from the UK House of Lords cases. For example, R.V. Jones in 2007 actually affirmed this point when it stated that it's important to know that the laws of the nations in their full effect are the laws of England and Wales. For example, we even find this in the United States Supreme Court case of Eddie V. Robertson, where they espoused the very same principle, where they gave preference to international laws and they stressed a need for the harmonization. And we apply this to the present debate. What we find is that there's a need to pull resources together. And even if we look at the need for collective effort, so that even the more vulnerable nations that don't have the resources of the United Kingdom, of the United States, the likes of this Venezuela's, the Zimbabweans, so that they can also be protected by the RIOs if the RIOs actually legislate on their behalf. So in conclusion, we give you three main points: the transnational nature, the harmonization standards, and the need for pooling of resources. And with that, we rest our case.
Thank you very much. Now we hear as well the introduction on the side of the University of Manchester. You have 4 minutes.
Am I visible and audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. We are arguing that regional international governmental organizations shouldn't be vested with the powers to legislate on behalf of their member states in cybersecurity matters. This is really for 3 main arguments. I'll start with a little bit of characterization and maybe filling in some gaps that we don't get. Cybercrime doesn't just include the actions of individuals, but it also includes the actions of large corporations. It includes them in the sense of data security, in how they treat and how they misuse data, or how they transport data around the resources. While in theory, the arguments laid upon by government may sound appealing, there is some fundamental flaws that I will go first, and related to my argument, is this would only be effective, and international legislation is only effective if you can actually prosecute people for it, if you actually have methods of accountability that are able to work. The reality is, with a lot of international laws and transnational laws, there is a bridge between the laws themselves and the ability to enforce them. And I will address this later. First, I'm going to point out the 3 main arguments that we're going to talk about, and really the framing in which this will work. Firstly, I'm going to address and talk about the bridge between, as stated before, between enforcement and legislation. Zara will then address sovereignty concerns and how national security is a right. And finally, Adalberto will talk about how national courts have a margin of appreciation to decide on matters of disinformation. It is important to understand that you cannot have both. We cannot have a system of intergovernmental legislation and national government legislation, because there is a principle of supremacy, as pointed out in Costa versus Enel, where intergovernmental organizations will have to have precedent and supremacy, and therefore will be able to and will have the full responsibility to legislate in this area, because otherwise you're going to have conflict and you're going to have conflicting laws between national and intergovernmental laws. Therefore, for this to work, we are going to need to fundamentally give all responsibility to intergovernmental organizations. Now, why does one size fit all? This is because fundamentally countries have different priorities in terms of what is at risk of their cybersecurity. Legislation is often reactionary. Governments discover issues and therefore legislate around to fix those issues, whether that's interference with elections or protecting hospital data. Intergovernmental organizations, even if they pool the resources, don't have the ability to legislate to the specific needs of every single country. For example, the drafting process for an EU bill takes about 12 to 18 months. And that's just the drafting. In fact, the entire process to actually have a bill go forward is between 24 and 31 months. Intergovernmental bodies are highly bureaucratic, and with cybersecurity being a pressing issue that presently changes, this would force countries to legislate on their own to deal with the problems, which then leads you back to the problems between conflicts and contradiction with national and international laws, which will likely violate that supremacy that international bodies have, and therefore this wouldn't be able to work. We can look at the fundamental issues, the most notable intergovernmental legislation in this area, such as the GDPR. On the day of enactment of the GDPR in 2018, the NOYB filed a series of complaints against some of the largest tech companies in the world. And to this day, 6 years later, only a third of them have had conclusions. Over half of them are still pending, and therefore we've not actually been able to have any accountability. The reality is corporations realize this. They realize that intergovernmental bodies can often take up to a decade to have any action, and therefore know that they are able to do whatever they want and misuse data however they want, because the likelihood is they're going to be more profitable over the time period in which they are violating these laws than they will be if they stop. And therefore, after the decade or after the time period that is elapsed, when they are finally brought to justice, they can just stop engaging with the practices at the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now that we heard the 2 introductions, we'll move to the first rebuttals. We hear first the first rebuttal by the University of Lusaka. You have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you very much. I will begin my speech or my submission in 5, 4, 3. Good afternoon, panel. First and foremost, allow me to rebut some of the statements that have been made by the current speaker from the opposing delegation. The speaker clearly stated that it's going to be an issue to prosecute and later on convict perpetrators of cyber crimes. We do realize that we do have the ICC and the ICJ, which are actually criminalizing and convicting and prosecuting all those international criminals, which would include also cybersecurity criminals. So as that, the ICJ and the ICC have that covered. Furthermore, he mentioned sovereignty. Sovereignty itself is still standard regardless of whether we have one law which is governing one region. For example, you do realize that as nations we have monist and dualist states, which means you are at will to decide whether to actually ratify or domesticate that law that has been made. This has been seen in the African Union. Let's see a delegation. Allow us also now to go on to the points that were mentioned earlier on by the proposing delegation as to your key points. We have the case of the UK House of Lords in Triquet versus Bath, in which they stated saying the law of nations is the law of England and Wales, which is to say that international law is widely accepted and respected, not only in domestic regions and territories, but also members of this house on the international market. Furthermore, we also have the case of the we have the United States Supreme Court case of Eric versus Roberts, which says international law is second only to their constitution, which clearly states that that law has been accepted and international law still supersedes domestic laws. We look at pooling resources. We have the case of drink or die scandal, in which we had an international criminal commit certain crimes, and as such, different nations came together and sorted out that issue. They convicted and prosecuted perpetrators of this crime. Affiliates of this delegation, let us accept that the international community would actually appreciate it if the European Union or the African Union itself sat down and made laws over cybersecurity to protect their regions. With these few points, we submit.
Thank you very much. Now we hear as well the first rebuttal on the side of the University of Manchester. You have 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to thank my colleague for this very enticing speech. You mentioned that there are other mechanisms to prosecute the doers of crime, such as the ICC or the ICJ. However, the ICC has been known to only have prosecuted 10 people since its inception. Furthermore, you stated that the UK, in a case, has stated that the law of the nations is the law of the UK. However, I would like to remind you that the UK has left the EU for the very reason that the EU was overstepping on its mandate when it comes to legislating for its member states. I would now like to move on to my argument, which is that security is the legal competence of the member states. Article 4.1 of the TEU states that matters of national security shall remain the sole responsibility of member states. And throughout EU practices, it's also seen that the EU always leaves national security as an exception to all their measures. I would like to mention 2 pieces of legislation which show this. First is the Artificial Intelligence Act, which protects citizens from interference with their fundamental rights by banning certain AI applications, for example, biometric categorization systems, emotion recognition processes, or even AI that manipulates human behavior or exploits people's vulnerabilities. However, Article 3.1 of this Act states that for AI, which is on the markets specifically to help the country fight issues of national security, are within the exception of this Act. Secondly, I would like to mention the e-privacy regulation, which also serves to protect citizens from the violation of their fundamental rights. Here also we see that there is a fundamental exception when it comes to member states' national security. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we move to the second rebuttals. So we start first with the second rebuttal on the side of the University of Lusaka. You have 2 minutes.
Before I begin, I'd like to confirm if I'm both audible and visible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. I will be beginning my submission in 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, esteemed panel of judges and our fellow debaters. I'll get straight to the point. As team opposition of the extreme opposition against the motion, which states that regional intergovernmental organizations should legislate on behalf of their member states in matters relating to cybersecurity. I will go straight to my rebuttals. The non-affirmative delegation talked about the issue of sovereignty and would like to state that every state that is part of a regional intergovernmental organization voluntarily accepts the obligations that come or are placed upon them by that same organization. As such, they're not being compelled to be a part of these regional intergovernmental organizations. And so we can't say they've been compelled or their rights to sovereignty have been infringed upon. And as the non-affirmative delegation rightly stated, UK was at the liberty to leave the EU, meaning that they were exercising their rights of sovereignty. When they saw that they no longer wanted to be bound by the obligations placed upon them by the EU, they left, thus exercising their sovereignty. And they also talked about how legislative processes by regional intergovernmental organizations are bureaucratic in nature, but so are legislative processes in parliament in any domestic jurisdiction. And of course, legislation takes time. Again, would like to also emphasize the fact that cybersecurity crimes are transnational in nature, and we can't be dealing with them on a domestic level. Because as we said, as we highlighted in the case of the Philippine criminal offender who created the I Love You virus that that affected various nations across the globe. This guy got away scot-free without any liability for the loss in $6 billion worth of revenue that he caused, simply because there was no harmonization of cybersecurity laws. And that leaves around gaps. And that's why we say that we should have a more comprehensive and wider coverage for our cybersecurity laws. This side of it.
Thank you very much. Now we hear as well the second rebuttal on the side of the University of Manchester. You have 2 minutes.
Can I confirm I'm audible and visible as well?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I thank my colleague for the argument, which I believe is legally flawed, because when my colleague talks about participating in an intergovernmental organization, they forget that usually the exception is on matters of national security or other threats to democracy, as Article 4.2 of the Treaty of the European Union. Also, the colleague mentioned that legislation takes time either way. But what about courts? What about regional courts? I'm going to argue that for legal and practical reasons, we should defer the decision on what counts as disinformation and misinformation to national courts. This is in line with the principle of subsidiarity, which entails that in systems of international governance, exercise of public authority should be allocated to the lowest level of governance. This principle pervades several aspects of international law, for instance, the principle of extortion, of domestic remedies in regional human rights courts. And subsidiarity concerns particularly freedom of speech, as the European Court of Justice recognized in the decision of Undecided in the UK, which rules that states have a margin of appreciation to set their own laws in this area. Now, given that this information normally targets voters of an upcoming election to manipulate them, the decision on whether the information spread is fake or unlawful needs to be given with authority and timeliness. It would be entirely useless for the EU or its courts to decide that certain news constituted disinformation well after the end of the election concerned. On the contrary, national legislation like the French law against the manipulation of information should allow the possibility of taking a case to a national judge who has 48 hours to halt the information if they decide it's unlawful. To let a regional court rather than a national one decide on these matters would not only be ineffective for the purpose of combating misinformation, but in breach of the principle of subsidiarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we move to the conclusions. We'll hear first the conclusion from the University of Lusaka. You have 2 minutes.
I'd like to confirm if I'm both audible and visible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'll be beginning my submission in 3, 2, 1. Now, I'll get straight to my rebuttals as well. We would like to bring to your attention that the member states are also a part of this legislative process. And so they're able to give their input so that a more comprehensive and tailor-made law can be made, which covers the different facets or needs and problems that are faced by each of the member states in a particular region. So we would like to rebut that point that they won't. There's a bit of what's it called? The laws which governing, like regional laws that govern cybersecurity, are not going to be tailor-made to the specificities of each individual member state. And then moving on to the fact that they said the non-affirmative delegation was stating that the status quo is that cybersecurity issues are solely to be delegated to domestic jurisdictions. And we're saying that the status quo doesn't have to remain the same if it's not working. We can't continue to push an operation which is not working. Like we saw in the case that I've just mentioned of the Philippine, who was able to get away scot-free with no liability, even after causing such harm to many different nations. We can't continue to let people go scot-free, not having any liability for the harm they caused, simply because it's the status quo. Things need to change as our problems evolve. So as we're saying, countries are also still at liberty to be able to leave these regional intergovernmental organizations. And thus, we can't say that their sovereignty is being affected. And looking at the problem at hand, cybersecurity crimes, which are transnational in nature, we continue to propose the fact that it's not enough for us to be dealing with a big problem on this level with domestic solutions that are on this level. We need to be able to meet that problem with the appropriate and requisite solution that is going to be able to tackle it sufficiently. And with this, we submit.
Thank you very much. Now we will hear as well the conclusion on the side of the University of Manchester. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I would like to mention a couple of flaws that I have noticed in opposition's arguments. First of all, they have focused on crimes being perpetrated by individuals and not by corporations who steal states' data and misuse it. And now, how do we address this problem? It can't be addressed through intergovernmental organizations. Secondly, they mentioned that this in fact would work. However, as we can see through the British Analytica case, this is not working right now because of the principle of supremacy. And states would have to defer to intergovernmental organizations, which would take too much time for them to address these cybersecurity issues. They haven't addressed the time issue either. Now, I would like to give a conclusion of our position. Firstly, Abdullah addressed the fact that states would have to defer to intergovernmental organizations, which have to legislate on behalf of them. However, states have different priorities when it comes to cybersecurity. And if an issue does happen, they would have to act fast and not wait for these organizations to give their judgment on the issue. Secondly, I mentioned the fact that due to the principle of sovereignty, it is the sole competence of the state to address these security issues. Finally, Adalberto has addressed the fact that it should be up to national courts to address issues of cybersecurity due to the principle of subsidiarity, which can also be seen in the EU, which means that issues should be resolved at the national level before being resolved at the interorganizational level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we heard both conclusions. It means from now you are not anymore under evaluation by the judge. So you can breathe, you can relax a little bit, because now we are in the post-match phase of the session. So we'll hear about your opinion on the topic, your impression as well on the argumentation and the match itself, obviously, before finishing with a bit of networking. So I would like to ask first the opinion of Asiatu Tondol Venkosi Mdala opinion for this match. So the floor is yours.
I think it was such a really good debate, as it's bringing about like really relevant issues that we need to address. So having to, especially being on side proposition, having to step outside of the status quo and looking at other alternatives that are not currently being practiced right now, which is, for instance, having your regional intergovernmental organizations legislate on behalf of member states. That's not something that's a reality right now. So having to kind of argue something like that. It was quite interesting.
Thank you very much. Miss Fatimatou Sarah Diallo, what did you think about this match, the topic and the argumentation?
Yeah, I also agree with Asiatu when she said that this is not something that's really being done apart maybe from the EU level. That's why it was a bit difficult to find examples and materials, especially to support our case. But I really did appreciate the challenge, and I definitely got more knowledge through this.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hilary Tinomiti, what did you think of the match, the topic, and as well the preparation as well for the match?
I think it was a very interesting motion. You were looking at something that's so global and transnational in nature. Just also preparing like domestic ways to tackle it. It's very intriguing, I think. So it's quite exciting. I'm in second year of my law degree, so I haven't necessarily tackled international law, but I think it was quite interesting doing the reading, going through all these House of Lords cases, even the international cases, US Supreme Court cases, just really interesting and important in literature and resources.
Thank you very much. Mr. Atassi, in Manchester, what did you think of the match?
It was a very interesting debate. As mentioned previously, it's a kind of a difficult one because of kind of the lack of evidence in how certain things would work. I mean, it was kind of funny because we're in Europe where there is intergovernmental organizations where there maybe isn't as much in the African unions. Also, like the different approach that we took to defining cybercrime, especially like how they focus more on the criminal aspect, and we talked about the data protection, the civil aspect. It was very interesting.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bwendo Kachenga, what do you think about the match and the debate and the topic itself?
Well, the debate was really amazing, and it was really good to see the opposition come up with points here and there, points that we thought they might mention were not mentioned, unfortunately, but it was really an amazing debate, and we love the fact that on the proposition delegation we have the European Union Network and Information System, which talks about how they want to make sure they work on the overall cybersecurity fighting scheme and whatnot, and so on and so forth. It was really amazing, and hearing the rebuttals talking about how corporations are committing cyber crimes, not only individuals, really amazing, because corporations are considered as individuals as well, and so on and so forth. So it's really amazing to find out what's happening in so many places, and I'm really happy that I was debating against the University of Manchester, and yeah, it was really blissful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as well, Mr. Adalberto Dionisi, what do you think about the match?
Yes, I think the points were very interesting, because I hadn't thought before, for example, of the issue of criminal responsibility as well as connected to corporate responsibility. And yeah, I think many points from the opposite side for me were unexpected, so it was fun and interesting to debate them.
Thank you very much. Now, of course, we will give, of course, the time to the judge to assess the match entirely. One thing that I did not mention as well is the support that both teams got actually through the whole competition, because for everybody watching the match, this is the 5th match that each team is getting at this moment. Since the beginning of the competition started in February. We are now in May, and we are in quarterfinals, so there will be, of course, semi-finals and big finals at the end of May and in mid-June. But already congratulations to both teams, because it's great, and as well many thanks to the two authors for this topic, but as well for the theme of the quarterfinals. So Dr. Garrido Munoz and Dr. Kostiukiewicz, who are those two authors for all the debate topics of the quarterfinals, including this one, of course. And one thing now to finish the competition is to ask a bit more on the debaters, because we heard them talking about their university, and as well it is as well important to talk about themselves, their future in their studies, One question for each of you. What will you do and what do you think you would like to do after the end of your studies, law studies, obviously? So first question for Asiatu Tondolvenkosi. Mdala, what are you planning to do in the future?
I think that I'm studying law at the moment, and the field is very vast. It's very diverse. You can go in a lot of directions. So right now, whilst I'm still doing my undergraduate degree, where I get to explore the many different branches of law, I'm still kind of making my decision. But as of now, I really, really like contract law. So maybe I might go in that direction. Maybe I might be a judge. I'm still deciding.
Okay, thank you very much. Miss Fatimatou Zahra Diallo, what are your plans in your career?
My plans are not very defined yet, but something I do want to do is work in public international law, definitely, or maybe human rights, either in the United Nations or the African Union.
Okay,
We'll see.
thank you very much. Mr. Tinomiti, what are your plans?
Just like my colleague, I think the law is quite expansive. Being that we're both in the second year, it's still time to decide. But I think I do have a keen interest in criminal prosecution.
Okay, criminal. And now we have same question for Mr. Atassi.
I'm still in my first year, so I really don't have much of an idea of what I want to do. I'm kind of just enjoying the degree for now.
Okay, so yes, indeed. First year, there are still a lot of modules and courses to explore, so it's indeed a lot of possibilities. Now, Mr. Bwendo Kachenga.
Well, I'm in my third year and I'm doing my international law, international trade law, and so on and so forth. But after I'm done, I'd like to do my international law for postgrad at the University of Manchester, because I'm actually impressed with the programs that they offer. And if they can speak like this is such a debate, then it means there's a lot of information that's being given at the University of Manchester. Or I'm going to do my politics and international relations, because I plan on being a diplomat. And as such, because the fact that our laws and English laws are very much similar, so at least it's going to be easy for me to come through and learn a few things like my opposition has done. This is actually the best debate I've had, because these guys have been really put me on my edge with this debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dionisi, what do you think about your start of a legal career eventually?
After the end of my studies, which hopefully will be this year, I would like to keep studying, and so I'll do a master hopefully in human rights and international human rights, and from there I'll see. And I'm still very unclear about stuff, but yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. A few words I didn't mention, indeed, the support on the University of Manchester. We want to send greetings to Elsa Manchester as well, who is watching, I guess, those matches as well. So greetings to the association over there. And the coach on the side of the University of Lusaka, Professor Lumbama Caputo at the University of Lusaka, and as well the other coach, Miss Tanya Razua Buania. So, as well, thank you very much for your support again for all these 5 matches for both teams. Do you want to add something, Miss Urbanova?
I think all has been covered. I just want to congratulate again the 2 teams for your participation throughout the edition. Really well done on representing your institutions. Already, after passing to the final phase of the competition, it means that your successors, the teams that will follow in your footsteps for the next year, already have a possibility to secure the spots for the registration among the 32. And hopefully we'll see you also in person in The Hague for the final week, as everyone is really welcome. And we look forward to showing you around the city of the peace and justice.
Thank you very much. So again, congratulations for all your efforts, and including this match, because it's really nice to see the progression through the competition. You have met already several universities from different parts of the world. So we are looking forward to know, of course, the result of this match, and as well to prepare and to welcome you as much as possible during the last weeks. Again, don't forget that you're among the 8 best teams of this competition, and as well you mark as well something in the history of your university in this competition. So many thanks, and we encourage you, of course, to watch the other match because, yeah, the opponent to the winner of this match will be among the other match coming during the next days. In any case, from The Hague, thank you very much. Greetings as well in UK, in Zambia, to all people watching as well and supporting the teams. So greetings on the side of the Corax Foundation, and we keep in touch for the next match and the next days. Greetings from The Hague. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everyone.